I'd like you to welcome Norman Lucas now. He's a Park Hills economic developer. I'm going to let him speak to you a few minutes and then we'll pick up from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings from Park Hills. I'm pleased to be here among you, and it's good to see so many familiar faces from way back when Glenn and my wife and I lived here years ago. Of course, many of you know that my wife was born and raised in Ironton. Of course, now that we live in the big city of Park Hills, she refers to herself as having come from Arcadia Valley. Because outside of these environs where we're at now, people think of this as Arcadia Valley. It's just a fact of life. Let's talk a little bit about the city of Park Hills, if you don't mind, because back in 19... The cities of Flat River, Esther, Elvins, and little village of River Mines. And contrary to what may some people think, those people who live in those neighborhoods of Park Hills still identify themselves as being from the neighborhood of Elvins, or from the neighborhood of Esther, or where I live, from the little village of River Mines, or from Flat River. And rightly so. No one has taken away their neighborhood identities. That's not possible. No one has taken away their history as those small towns came together. That's not possible. History is something that's made and recorded. It's not taken away by consolidation. It's not erased by simply gathering together to do more together. And I want to point out that while our internal identities have not changed in Park Hills through consolidation, thank goodness our external identity has changed in Park Hills. Now, instead of being small, little towns butted up against one another, we are a community recognized from the outside as 8,000 strong and growing. Now, this may not seem terribly important to you from where you sit right now, but as an economic developer, I can tell you that external identity is very much a numbers game. If you want to attract investment to a community, you need to be able to show what are the strengths of that community, what's the size of that community, what kinds of dollars are involved in the investment already present in that community, how well taken care of is the infrastructure of that community. That is extremely difficult to do if you have three towns put side by side instead of one community named and identified together. And I'll give you a little idea of why that is. If you were to look at the 1990 census, you would not find anything about Park Hills in Missouri, because it did not yet exist. If you wanted to compare how well those little towns were doing before they came to be Park Hills, you would have to do some very sophisticated mathematics in order to try to combine all the odd information that the census takes and then try to make it all fit into a gigantic jigsaw puzzle to know how that collection of four communities really did compare to what we saw when Park Hills came together. Now, thank goodness for me as economic developer, the census came back around in the year 2000 after Park Hills had consolidated, and the census counted us all because we are all in one city. They counted us all together. I can tell you from trying to look up the statistics for Ironton, for Pilot Knob, and for Arcadia, one of the big impediments that investors have when they're trying to decide, should I invest money in the Arcadia Valley or not, is that because of the difference in sizes, some of the census data is in different forms for the different towns. I couldn't even find what demographic folks call a pull factor, that is, how well do the retailers do pulling in money in the form of sales. I couldn't even find that data for Arcadia because it's just not that big. And this is a real difficulty if you're going to bankers as an investor to try and get money partners to come in with you to make an investment into a community. It's even a problem for state government. If you're going after a grant, they want you to show, how is this grant going to help anybody? And if you can't tell all of the demographic detail about part of the community, your grant application may well be sunk. I'm pleased to tell you that because Park Hills is one community now, I have a relatively easy time attracting investment to our city of Park Hills. I've got about, well, just a little bit short of $1 million of grant money coming into Park Hills this year alone. Previous years, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, but it's relatively easy because the demographic data, the description in numbers of what our city really is comprised of is so simple to access and so easy to share. One of the things that Bo talked about was identity. I'm glad he brought up identity because internal identity is just as important as external identity. One of the things that I thought was important for you to know is that there are folks here who have been thinking about their identity and the history of this community for a very long time. When Bo first asked me to come down here, one of the first things that I was reminded of was what I had heard that Dorothy Reese used to teach in the schools way back when she was still a teacher here. She used to tell her students, never forget where you come from. And I think those are wise words, but I don't think that has to stand in the way of the three communities coming together in the way of becoming one city. I think everyone's identity, whether you're in Pilot Knob, Arcadia, or Ironton, will remain intact because of the wonderful memories, the wonderful historic preservation that's being done by the Iron County Historic folks, and even in the state annals of the history of Missouri. There's so much history placed on the Missouri map as Arcadia Valley. If they get lucky and spot Arcadia, they're in the right neighborhood. But you and I both know, if they were to go online or pull out a mobile device and try to search for Arcadia Valley, Missouri, they come up empty. There is no such place right now, even though, like my wife says, she's from Arcadia Valley. I guess the last thing I want to say about this and about our success in Park Hills due to consolidation is that you all have a distinct advantage in already knowing what you want to become. I am assuming that you want to take advantage of that name recognition you've already begun to generate by virtue of naming the schools Arcadia Valley, by virtue of having all these organizations that Bo pointed out earlier that bear the name Arcadia Valley. There is another couple of communities in our region, way over in Perry County, that wanted to consolidate, and they thought they could do it. And when it came right down to it, the one reason they couldn't consolidate was because they could not agree upon a name for the new city when they tried to pull the two cities together. And it's a sad tale. They're still separate. They're still largely unknown to any investors that might want to invest in their communities, and they still have divides where they don't need any divides. You've got some great investment going on in your community right now with the new rail station that's going to be built over by the Union Pacific tracks. I know from having talked with the people involved in that grant application, I know that that was an uphill struggle simply because there had to be established more cooperation between two towns than had been done in a very long time. And overcoming obstacles like that is great, but just think how much more could be done if those obstacles didn't exist because the community was one Arcadia Valley. So I'm here to wish you luck. I think that it could be a very wonderful thing for the community were it to come together. I'm very pleased for you that you already have some identity to move into that's recognized already by folks around you, including the folks in Park Hills. Thank you.